Hello and welcome back to the NBA DFS Slate Breakdown for January 31st, the last day of the month. Let's make everybody some rent money here. All right, let's get into it. It is an interesting slate. It is a bigger slate. And before we get into it, come join us at LionStar. $39.99 per month gets you access to all of the Props AI tool, all of our DFS stuff for every sport we cover. It's the best deal in the industry. Nobody gives you more for less. Let's go. All right. 9 games on the slate for both Draftkings and FanDuel. And it is an interesting one because Dallas is without Luka, Kyrie, Dante Exum, Derek Lively, Derek Jones, so they are a bit shorthanded. And we will dig into that, but let's start off on point guard here. So Jamal Murray, the big news here is that Denver Nuggets are without Nikola Jokic. So obviously giant repercussions for the rest of the team, but Jamal Murray is not the guy that I'm going there for the OKC Thunder. Or versus the OKC Thunder. Thunder are pretty good versus point guard. While I do like Murray, I just don't think he gets a huge usage bump without Jokic. I actually think it could hurt him a little bit. Just because the two of them use so much pick and roll together. I don't love the spot. I think it's a tough spot, and now ownership's on it too. Now, he's been really good lately, and, you know, he's had many games right around 50, which will totally get it done at 3,600. The problem is that, 8,600. I think it's 3,600. The problem I see here is that I don't really see much of a ceiling past that, and you really need a little more than that for him to really, really get it done for you and be a guy that you had to have at high ownership. And I just don't know if he's going to be a guy you have to have, and he's super high owned. Next, we got James Harden. I do like Harden. 8.4K versus the Wizards, a spot we've been loving to pick on all year. But 8.4K, you know, is getting up there. He's very similar as Jamal Murray, where, you know, mid-50s is kind of his ceiling. Now, that is going to get it done. That will do it for you. But you're just not going to get a, 7, 8X from him. But if you can take a 50 burger, you're taking it. SGA is very high owned. Don't mind it. Just don't love it. I think there's other spots to go on the slate. Gotta talk about AO now. AO has just been playing an insane amount of minutes. 39 minutes last game, 33 the game before that. Bulls have more injuries now. I think he's locked in to at least 35 minutes. And against the Hornets, you gotta like it, especially with a guy that can get you mid-30s or into the 40s in a good matchup. So I definitely like the spot. I don't mind some AO at his ownership. I also don't mind some Kobe White. Same situation. He's just playing a ton of minutes. He got into foul trouble in that first half last night. Still played 35 minutes. The 2 games before that, 30, 42, 43, 41. At this kind of minutes and this kind of matchup, I gotta be interested at, mid 7s when without Levine, he was, in the 8s and we were playing him, or right around 8 and we were playing him. So I don't mind the price tag on him, and I am absolutely willing to go here. A couple other guys, Malik Monk. I think it's very interesting. Everybody's jumped off the bandwagon of Malik Monk. He's played 3 games of only like 20 minutes in a row, but look, I still think he is likely to get 24, 26, maybe 28 minutes in this spot. And it's a good spot for him. The Heat aren't as good with people coming off the bench, and Malik Monk can get it done, and at no ownership, it's a fairly interesting spot to me. I'm not as scared with the Heat, picking on them with guards. So I definitely think this spot is a little interesting. Then I got to go to Josh Giddey. So SGA is getting ownership because Jalen Williams is out. Josh Giddey's not getting any ownership, but he's going to get a usage bump, and his minutes are going to be a little more secure tonight. So his minutes have been the issue lately, where he plays 22, 25, sometimes 28. But I think tonight it's fairly likely that he's getting 28 minutes. He averages 1.16 fantasy points per minute. The matchup is fine. I'm very intrigued with Giddey picking up some extra usage and some extra minutes tonight. Now, on to DraftKings point guard, high-owned, Jaden Hardy, SGA, and AO. Jaden Hardy, we were about to get to on shooting guard on FanDuel, but look, with all those guys out, he is likely to start. When he has started, he has done well. 45, 12, but only played 24 minutes, 31 minutes, 27. And this is a spot where, with how hurt they are, he is likely to get minutes. Minutes are the big thing here. Last time he started, only 19 minutes, 27 last night and went off. 2 nights ago and went off. My worry here, he is going to be very high owned, but my worry here is that he doesn't get as many minutes as everybody, expects him to. Now, without Exum, without Irving, without Doncic, they don't have many other guards to get minutes. So I think there is some safety here. And on DraftKings at 4,400, which is super cheap, I'm absolutely willing to go there. He's in an okay spot. I'm not really scared off. SGA we went over, AO we went over, and over on the matchup tool. So Fred VanVleet, Ty Jones, and Mike Conley are the best matchups. I am slightly interested in Fred VanVleet. He is playing, his normal ton of minutes, and he's a guy that can easily get into the 50s. Now his salary is all the way down to 7.2, so I am very interested. It isn't the greatest matchup, but he is a guy that can get it done regardless of matchup. On to shooting guard over here. So we got Jaden Hardy, Tim Hardaway, and Josh Green. No surprise here. 3 Mavericks with all the guys out makes total sense. Look, Hardy is we went over him. Hardaway, I should say. Without Doncic and Irving, he's like a 1.26 fantasy per minute guy. Now, that is a pretty small sample size, and I think that it might be weighed a little bit too heavily on just a couple performances, but nonetheless, at 6,400 with all the usage he's going to get, it's hard to not go there in this spot. He can absolutely give you, those high mid 40s or high 40s at 6.4K, and hard to not want a little piece of that. I totally understand if you do want to fade. There is occasional games where, he goes 39 minutes, only puts up 24 points and doesn't get it done. 30 minutes, 14. He has failed in similar spots before. So you don't need to go absolutely all in. He is likely to be over 50, over 60% owned, something like that. But he is in a very, very interesting spot because that usage just goes through the roof for him. Josh Green, usage go up a little bit, but he just doesn't have the ceiling as other guys, so he's not really factoring in too much for me. Some pivots. We already talked about them on the point guard side. Malik Monk and Josh Giddey are kind of where I'm looking at. And on DK, shooting guards, high-owned, Hardy, Tim Hardaway, and Io. We have talked about them all. And matchup tool, Io, Brandon Ingram, and Trey Mann. Ingram is a guy that we do need to talk about. Zion Williamson is now questionable. That just came up. It was, breaking news as of maybe 30 minutes ago. So probably like an hour after, this is actually out. But without Zion, BI gets the biggest bump up. And he becomes super interesting, especially if they want to start him at power forward, which, they may not. They usually don't. But he does become a little more interesting altogether. With the Zion out, he gets the biggest bump, and I would be very intrigued by him at that point. Man is cheap enough where you can consider him in this matchup. He does have some games where he pushes 30, which, kind of is enough to get it done, but maybe not with so much value on this slate. Small forward, we got Tim Hardaway, Josh Green, Jonathan Isaac. Isaac is a very interesting case study. He played 23 minutes, then only played 8 versus Dallas in the second game back-to-back. Now, I don't know if his minute restriction is back on or because it was, just the back-to-back situation or what they're doing here. But if he's at 22 minutes, he's interesting. If he's at, 15, 16, 17 or under, I can't really get behind it. But he is, a 1.1, 1.2 fantasy per minute guy. And if he's getting 22 at 4K, he becomes interesting. Then pivots, I like Kawhi Leonard. He's not really a pivot. He is high owned, but just an absolute smash spot versus the Wizards with a guy that can get you 50 and has a ceiling in the 60s. So very intrigued there. Very intrigued by DeRozan. Still don't understand why nobody's going there or why he's not priced higher. 8.1K for a guy that has got over 50 in 2 of 3 games is just wild. He is routinely in the 40s, has that 50 or 60 ability in a great matchup. Makes a lot of sense to me at lower ownership. Don't mind going there. Miles Bridges is also priced a little too cheap in this role, in this situation without Ball, without Rozier, no Hayward, no Williams. He's going to have to do a lot. He has 50 in back-to-back games, 8.5K. Absolutely willing to go back there. The worry here is, he goes back into mid-40s instead of mid-50s. But I think this game is a very interesting one. Both teams are absolutely hurt on both sides. They don't have a ton of, extra players to go. They're going to be playing their starters, on both sides, a ton of minutes this game. And I think it is an interesting one. And I would not be surprised whatsoever if there's 2 or 3 guys in this game that become optimal, even though it is one of the lowest scoring games on the slate, if not the lowest. It's just they're getting so many minutes. There's going to be so many opportunities to score. Unfortunately, it's a slow-paced game, but neither team are very good. And almost Jimmy B. Got to talk about Jimmy B. All right, so one of the things that I thought was super interesting that I found with Rozier on the court, Butler, Hero, and Bam are doing amazingly right now. They are scoring super, high levels of fantasy output. And I found that very interesting. It's obviously still a very, very small sample size, but, the Heat have lost 7 straight. This organization, especially Jimmy Butler, hate losing. And he's going to get fired up once again for this game. 53, 45 in the last 2. I think Rozier helps him, just makes the ball be spread around a little bit more and less pressure on Jimmy or Bam. And I think he's in a really good spot at 8.2K versus a Kings team, which is a pace-up spot. The Heat are going to have to score to keep up with the Kings. I think it's pretty interesting, and don't mind going there at super low ownership. Small forward on Draftkings, Tim Hardaway, Kawhi Leonard, Michael Porter Jr. 5,700 is probably just way too low for Porter Jr. without Jokic. His usage is going to go up a bit. While Aaron Gordon is my favorite spot to target on this team right now outside of DeAndre Jordan, I still think Porter's in a good spot. I'm going to have plenty of him. Cody Martin, 4.4 is probably just too low for the minutes that he's going to get. He's pretty much locked into 30. Very high likelihood, he's able to get 30 fantasy points in this game, playing all those minutes. And matchup tool, We got Harrison Barnes, Jaden McDaniels, and Bogdan Bogdanovic. I don't really want any of them. So we'll just move it on there. Power forward, Jonathan Isaac, PJ Washington, Kawhi Leonard. PJ Washington is an interesting case here. So he started with, they had Brandon Miller go to point guard, and he started at power forward, played 35 minutes, put up an absolute dud. But it's just because he didn't have rebounds, didn't have assists, didn't have steals and blocks. He got it done with how many shots he had and all that. Just no ancillary stats, which at him at power forward versus center, you can expect a little bit of that, but probably not the fall off that he did. Now, I don't know if they're going to keep him in the starting lineup. I would suggest with the Bulls going small, or I would expect with the Bulls going small, because they will have White, Ayo, and Caruso all starting. I would expect that Ish Smith slides back into the starting lineup and PJ Washington onto the bench. And with that, his ownership's going to come down. I'm probably not going there, but he is at least a little bit more intriguing because his fantasy per minute, or his usage, should go up a little bit off the bench rather than it is as a starter. So not totally sure what's going to go on here, but it is a wait and see situation. Also, we already covered point guard. I still don't really like Ish in this spot, even if that does. I projected him as started, gave him those type of minutes, but still, he's not really popping up for me. Kawhi Leonard, talked about it. We like it. All right, so Denver big man situation. I do believe that it will be DeAndre Jordan starting. I think that DeAndre Jordan may play less than 28 minutes. In that case, Zeke still could get, 20, 22 minutes, something like that. 0.8 fantasy per minute guy at 3,700. He could get there for you. He has a couple games where, he's done very well in limited minutes. And that's his thing is, throughout the season, he's just barely had games where he's got minutes. So this is me thinking he might get a little bit of minutes. So don't think too far into this. Pay attention to news as it comes up. But I would say there's a possibility of a complete punt at low ownership for him. Jared Allen. Jared Allen, I think, is still in a very good spot. Evan Mobley going to be limited. Now Allen is questionable, but Allen has been absolutely crushing. 1.33 fantasy per minute. He's been doing that with Mobley on the court too. I don't mind go back there in a very good matchup versus the Pistons. All right, Aaron Gordon. I think Aaron Gordon gets one of the biggest bumps from a usage and role on this team. I think that he is going to have the ball in his hands way more than he did without. I think he is going to be used a little more like Jokic would be. DeAndre Jordan can't play that role. They're not going to just stop doing their offense. I think Aaron Gordon is going to play a little bit more like point forward stuff. Jamal Murray is obviously the point guard, but Aaron Gordon might be the guy they're using pick and roll a little bit more. And I think he's interesting. He's done very well in the past without Jokic. I don't mind going back at 6.2K for a guy that, without Jokic last year had a couple 50 burgers. Don't mind going there whatsoever, especially with him being at low ownership. Now, who knows what the team actually does. I'm just trying to think a little bit about what might happen in that situation. Now, power forward on DraftKings, high owned, we got Kawhi Leonard, Victor Wembanyama, and PJ Washington. Wemby at 9.2K is too cheap. Absolutely would consider going there. Dude's got a ceiling of like 70, At 9.2K, you got to think about that. Kawhi Leonard, 8.2K is too cheap. And matchup tool, power forwards, Evan Mobley. We got Asuar Thompson. No idea if he's going to start. We have him projected right now as possibly starting. If he is, he's Interesting. 3.9K on DK is way too cheap. He's much more expensive on FanDuel, but on DK, I think you would have to consider that if he's starting, especially after what he did earlier in the season. He hasn't been anywhere near that lately, but he can produce at a very solid clip, so I definitely consider him. Jabari Smith is in consideration, nothing more than that. And on to senders, DeAndre Jordan, PJ Washington, Nikola Vucevic. DeAndre has started a couple games this year, put up 51. Oh, I guess he only started one, went absolutely nuts that game, but played 25 minutes here, 31 points. We know that he can crush when he gets minutes, and he should get minutes today. Obviously, just make sure he's starting. He's been playing the backup role, so I'd assume he is, but who knows, when it comes down to it. But at 4,500 in the center spot, likely getting, 26, 28 minutes, I think you got to consider him. Jared Allen, interested in, and then Nick Richards. Got to talk about Richards a little bit. His price is up there a little bit, so I don't love him quite as much. But I just like this game. I think there's going to be plenty of minutes there. He has produced very good when he's at center, and it's Miles Bridges at power forward, not PJ Washington, because I think they eat into each other a little bit. But without LaMelo Ball and Rozier, Hayward, Williams, he's like a 1.07 fantasy per minute guy at 6,500 when he's getting 30 plus minutes in a decent matchup. It just kind of makes sense. I don't absolutely love this play, but the math is there, and I'm getting more of him than I probably should be. And Draftkings center spots, DeAndre Jordan, Victor Wembanyama, and PJ Washington, all of which we've gone over. And into the matchup tool, Wendell Carter Jr. I'm definitely getting some of him on FanDuel. He's priced up a little bit, 6,100. I would be getting some for sure. He's been around 40 a couple times since he started. He's, got his more minutes, and the matchup is a decent one. So I don't mind going there whatsoever. If you look, fantasy per game for opposing starting centers, 36. That is 6x. He can get it done. Got it done all last year. Finally worked getting minutes again. I think he's healthy. Don't mind going there whatsoever. And they're going to need him to play some D against Wemby and keep him off the boards a little bit. Plumlee, just meh to me. Don't mind it. Don't hate it. DeAndre Jordan in a good matchup and cheap. So makes all the sense in the world. All right, guys. That'll do it for us today. Good luck. Let's win some money. Talk to you later. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.